Martin Luther King Jr. was born on January 15, 1929 in Atlanta, Georgia. He was a Baptist minister and a civil rights activist who had a seismic impact on race relations in the United States beginning in the mid-1950s. A talented student, King skipped 2 grades in high school and entered Morehouse College when he was 15 years old. While earning a doctorate at Boston University, he met aspiring singer Coretta Scott. They married in 1953 and blessed with 4 children. Among his many efforts, King helped organize the Southern Christian Leadership Conference (SCLC), inspired by Mahatma Gandhi. King advocated a nonviolent protest like boycott sit-ins. Through his nonviolent activism and inspirational speech, he played a pivotal role in ending legal segregation of Black Americans, as well as the creation of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Due to his nonviolent activism, King was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1964. It was meant to recognize his success in fighting racial inequality by using nonviolent approach. At the time of receiving his Nobel Peace Prize, King was only 35 years old, and this made him to go down into history as one of the youngest recipients of a Nobel Prize.
I accept the Nobel Prize for Peace at a moment when 22 million Negroes of the United States are engaged in a creative battle to end the long night of racial injustice.
Before 1960, racism was at its peak in the city of Birmingham, Alabama. African Americans suffered discrimination of all sorts. In early 1963, King started a peaceful movement against this discrimination, which is known as the Birmingham Campaign. The Birmingham Campaign was a decisive civil rights movement protest during April and May of 1963, led by the Southern Christian Leadership Conference (SCLC), seeking to bring attention to attempts by local Black leaders to end the de jure racial segregation of public facilities in Birmingham, Alabama. The SCLC was created in 1957 by a group of civil rights activists, and King was the president of the SCLC. He led them to carry out protest discrimination, calling for equal voting rights for African Americans. King and his associates deliberately chose cities with stark racial injustice to stage protests, ensuring that confrontation would expose systemic racism. The Birmingham Campaign in 1963 targeted one of the most segregated cities in the U.S. The violent response for authority, such as the use of high-pressure water jets and police talk against peaceful protesters, were broadcast nationwide, shocking many Americans and consolidating support for the movement. Based on the event, it showed Martin Luther King's strategic planning as one of his leadership qualities. King used nonviolent resistance as the foundation of the movement.
I admire freedom fighters wherever they are, but I still believe that nonviolence is the strongest approach. I think that would apply to the Hungarian situation also. I don't think it's limited to a particular locality. I think it should apply in every situation in the world where individuals seek to break loose from the bondage of colonialism or from some totalitarian regime or from the system which we confront in America.
This strategy involved organizing peaceful protests, sit-ins, and march to confront unjust laws and societal norms. King firmly believed that nonviolence was not just a tactic but a way of life. He argued that love and peaceful resistance could disarm hatred and injustice, turning enemies into allies. His philosophy was outlined in his 6 principles of nonviolence, which included the belief that nonviolence seeks to win friendship and understanding, and that it attacks system of injustice, not individuals. By maintaining nonviolence, even in the face of aggression, the movement highlighted the moral high ground of its cause and garnered widespread public sympathy.
Martin Luther King Jr.'s visionary leadership was a defining trait that drove the civil rights movement and inspired millions worldwide. Led by his religious convictions and philosophy of nonviolence, King became one of the most prominent figures of the civil rights movement.
I will never change in my basic idea that nonviolence is the most potent weapon available to the Negro in his struggle for freedom and justice. I think for the Negro to turn to violence would be both impractical and immoral.
The goals of the movement were rooted in peaceful struggle for fair systems in employment, schools, public transport, voting, and after so many years of organizing protests by marching, striking, and boycotting, the effects of the civil rights movement began to pay off. King's ability to articulate a future where equality and justice prevail was most famously demonstrated in his I Have a Dream speech on August 28, 1963, during the March on Washington.
Just as I have a dream, my poor little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character.
In this powerful address, King painted a vivid picture of a society where individuals are judged by their character rather than the color of their skin. Delivered to over 250,000 civil rights supporters from the steps of the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C., the speech was one of the most famous moments of the civil rights movement and among the most iconic speeches in American history. Based on this history, it was a proof that Martin Luther King Jr. was a skilled communicator who used emotional appeal to persuade and influence his audience. His messages were clear and concise, making them accessible to everyone. He did connect personally with his audience by sharing relatable experience, using vivid imagery and storytelling, and delivering his speech with passion and dynamic energy, inspiring others to act. Whether advocating for racial equality or economic justice, King's unwavering belief in a better future and his ability to inspire collective action solidified his role as a transformative leader. On April 4, 1968, Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated.
Martin Luther King, 20 minutes ago, died.
He died at age 39.
Martin Luther King was shot and was killed tonight in Memphis.
While standing on the balcony outside his room at the Lorraine Motel in Memphis, Tennessee, King was killed by a sniper's bullet. The shocking assassination sparked riots and demonstrations in more than 100 cities across the country. The shooter, James Array, a former convict and drifter, initially escaped authorities but was apprehended after a 2-month international manhunt. He pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 99 years in prison. King's life significantly influenced race relations in the U.S.
I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land,
making him the most well-known black leader of his era. His legacy is honored with national holidays, schools, and memorials. Over the years, extensive archival studies have led to a more balanced and comprehensive assessment of his life, portraying him as a complex figure, flawed, fallible, and limited in his control over the mass movements with which he was associated, yet a visionary leader who was deeply committed to achieving social justice through nonviolent means.
I believe firmly in nonviolence, as I have already said. But at the same time, I am not an anarchist. Now, some pacifists are anarchists following Tolstoy, but I don't go that far. I believe in the intelligent use of police force.